with your center or organization? If anyone can start.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you all hear me now? Again?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. My name is Romeo Guerra. I'm the director for El Centro de las Americas. I've been there over 7 years. It's a nonprofit organization that's been around for over 40 years. Initially, it started out doing a lot of cultural events and providing some education for the community at large. It shifted towards providing more direct services, and currently we have a lot of services that maybe we'll get into later, but I think that's enough for now unless you have a question.
Hello, my name is Francisca Beltran, and I work with the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights. And what our office does is we actually investigate allegations of discrimination for employment, housing, and public accommodations. I've been there about 9 years, but this office has been in existence for over 53 years.
Hi, my name is Lenaditis So. I'm a health education and advocacy program manager at the Asia Communication Center. I work in that as first I work as a direct service, doing direct service as a community advocate. We serve all refugee and immigrant population and helping them with family resources and a health education program we have, and a senior program, and we have youth program and cultural program.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Reinhardt. I am from the Asian Center and I am the cultural program coordinator. I've been working at the Asian Center for 9 years, and we're so lucky that we have ACC sponsored our cultural event in the past few years, and always are big sponsors. So maybe you guys remember just past the September 30th, we had the Harvest Moon Festival, and you guys are one of the sponsors for us, and we're so lucky. And during the talking, and we might tell you more about what the Asian Center doing, what the programs we have, and what kind of services we provide. So yeah, and you guys can make any question for us. Thank you.
Sounds good. And it's so great to meet you guys. My first question for all of you, and I'll ask these questions and it's open to everyone to answer. When someone passes away in a certain community, is there specific expectations for, let's say, the spouse, the children, and extended family members, and then the community around that person?
So as you know, a lot of immigrants, refugees, they came to United States because they don't have their roots here. So first thing, they came and they wanted to find where they belong to. So quickly, a lot of Asian people come to Lincoln, Nebraska. Quickly, they search for the kind of what their group is, and they found the Asian Center. So they make a phone call or they just walk into our office, and then we can introduce them to their community. So quickly, short after they arrive to Lincoln, they kind of like have their own people, together. Maybe today we probably, Popo and I we're both from Asian countries. So that's why a lot of the cultures are similar. So if I say something, I missed it, you can, add it. So for example, if somebody die in our community, we normally like to give the money because to show our support. So especially we go to their house and we don't wear anything colorful or or so flower or something. So we try to either white or black, go to their house to show our, kind of like a how to say, kind of like we feel sad. We are with you. So give money, or some people right now in Lincoln, I think the Chinese community like to bring a lot of food because they know when they have lost their relatives, they don't have a mood or time to make food. So the food always help them. And for it's so funny when we see when I went to the American, kind of like a funeral, they have so many things, put on the video, and the people start to laughing about it, and what they experience. A lot of fun thing. It's not like so sad, but if we go to our community members' house with this situation, and you're laughing or you even talk something funny, it's kind of like not a respect to them. So you have to be, at least you need to pretend you're sad, so that's really it's my culture, but then I don't like that the way anymore. Before I was in China, I feel I feel sad, but now I come here, I like American culture. They celebrate their life and they enjoying what they did. I like that, but go back to my community, I have to be really sad. I have to be either maybe tears out, and be help them. That's what I feel. So what do you think?
So each culture is different, and even though from Asia, and they have a different culture that or belief that they value. So I'm from Burma, and my ethnic group is Korean Burmese, but it's also depend on the religion too. So I'm a Christian, and some are Buddha. So we have different way to bury our loved one. So for us, we don't really have a specific color that you can wear, or because we wear what we have. Like we wear our clothes, current traditional clothes, or we wear something that we usually wear at home. We don't have specific color like here they have black, or some culture they have white that they're supposed to wear. But for my culture, we don't have those. And then in the day that we hear about our community passed away, so the community member to go to that person's house, and then they will pray in or worship, and then even though that they will sleep, some people they have time, and then they will sleep over to their family house, and then they not even sleep, they will celebrate and talking, and then making food, and then coming together. It like support that family, because they lost someone that they love, and then they have no energy to do it, even though the household stuff, or even though take care of themselves. So the community members of we go together and help in that family. And that's the question, right? Yeah, maybe the next question.
So, it's interesting how our cultures align to a certain extent, but I'm Mexican American. So some of the traditions kind of blend into the American culture. But I recall that, especially in my family, we were not allowed to listen to music. That was the first sign of somebody's death, not allowed to listen to music, and then also wearing black. And this is more towards the older population, and wearing black. That really hasn't come through for the younger generation. The other thing is, it's like Lynetta said, it depends where you're from. So, being that I'm Mexican American, I can tell you a little bit about Mexico and how some of the immigrants actually do go through the process of mourning. When you're an immigrant and coming into this country, first of all, there is no such thing as going to a mortuary, okay? Excuse me. And so I have experienced both sides. I've experienced the death in a family in Mexico. And in Mexico, aside from the traditional, no music, you wear black, people get buried within 24 hours. And so I think that is the hardest part of our immigrant population, is the fact that if they haven't seen their mother, their father, siblings, anybody back in their country for years, and they're really, usually, they do not have that opportunity to mourn them and see them before they're buried, which is, I think, the hardest part for the immigrant community. Aside from that, also when they're buried within 24 hours, there's also that chance where once they're buried, that's not their final resting place. I mean, the majority of the community is Catholic back in Mexico. And it is accompanying the family for 24 hours because people get buried right away. And so that is very traditional. Bodies are not usually gone through any type of embalming. Thank you. So bodies are, they're by the family, they're usually prepared, dressed, put in a coffin. There's a seal that goes over them. So you can see them, but you'll never be able to touch them afterwards because they're not embalmed. And not just family, but the community, will come together, and they will literally be in that household for 24 hours with the family. And after 24 hours, then there's a procession, mass, and then they are buried, which to me was the hardest part when I had one of my uncles pass away. It was that we got there, and within the hour, he needed to be buried because they had to take a special permit to be able to continue having that body after 24 hours. I think they waited 2 more hours for those of us that just had arrived back to Mexico. That's that tradition back in Mexico. The experience that we have here has changed over the years, especially in Lincoln, because now a lot of the mortuaries are starting to understand the culture. Okay, especially with the 24-hour vigil that occurs. And so I've seen that. I've been here 32 years, and I've seen that more and more happened as the years go by. So they're allowing our community to have that vigil for 24 hours. The difference is that people do get embalmed here. It gives families an opportunity to come from afar and have their goodbyes. And it's the same thing like the Chinese culture. You don't laugh. Yes. As of right now, my understanding, it's only been at the church. I have yet to know of anybody who has the body at home. I imagine that if somebody is really adamant about it, they'd have to have a special permit for it. But yeah, no, so far the experience has been at the church. So that's a good question because it usually is at the home. And go ahead. No music. None. No. Usually the radio, listening to everyday music. No, the only time we usually hear music is if you're at the church. And even then, back in Mexico, that's not allowed because, they either have a very solemn mass or the priest actually go to the house and have a mass for the family. Very rarely are they able to afford to get a hearse to take them to the church. And so when it's no music, I mean, it's no music. Like, and kids, especially young children, they're taken care of, away from that whole scene because it is that solemn. And during COVID, it was even worse because during COVID, people were not allowed to have the bodies. I mean, you died and within hours you were cremated. So that was, I think, and I did have an uncle who passed away during COVID, and He actually died at home, and within the hour they picked him up, he was cremated, and that was it. And it's part of the, it's part of the process. It's the respect that we want to render the family and the person who passed away. So yeah, literally no music. Now here it's a little different. Again, the American culture coming together is the families do have hymns, they do sing during church. But and then, you also have to think that people are not so as strict as it is back in the home country.
Ditto. You left me nothing to say. Actually, I could add a few things. Regarding Hispanics, Latinos, Mexican Americans, and other Latinos, we have obviously some indigenous roots here, but we also have immigrant roots. And so there's a mixture of that. And then you mix in the American way of doing things and also the country of origin. In my case, it's Mexico and so forth. So a lot of the things that were discussed here, I would reinforce. There's a couple of things that because of the mixture of the indigenous roots and the Catholicism and so forth, there's a couple of things that I think I could point out. One of them is called luto. Luto is mourning. And it was described a little bit ago. Sometimes the people, the family, the immediate family will go through 30 days, 60 days of basically being in the house and not much contact with the outside. This is very traditional. Things change, obviously, with the cultural acculturation and so forth. So the only contact they have is maybe with another family member that will bring food, just to show respect. And they also wear very dark clothes and so forth. That has changed some with time. The other concept that we have is called a velorio. A velorio is when the people will stay up 24 hours praying or just looking over the body, I guess is another way to say it. They even actually put like four people or 4 guards where the casket is to make sure that nobody takes the body and so forth. So it's kind of again, very traditional kinds of things. And then the last thing that I will bring up, and we just celebrated this not too long ago, it's called El Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. During that luto period, things are very solemn. But Día de los Muertos is actually a celebration of life. And if you saw some of what we call altares, ofrendas, there's a big altar, and you put people's pictures there in remembrance of them, and that's when you celebrate their life. You bring in their favorite food, their favorite music, and again, you just celebrate the life they had and that they're moving on. And if we have a tradition that if you forget the people that have passed away, they will never be released and go into heaven, in this case. It's just a thought. I guess it's a philosophy. So I guess that's about all I could add to that, unless there's questions.
Behind the 24-hour thing, that just seems very fast and like in my culture. So I'm just curious if there's any meaning behind that.
It's mostly because there's no embalming that goes on, and so of course, the body might not be in very good shape after a couple of days. Yeah, yeah. So.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, first of all, I'm so sorry for being late. I was with another client. We are talking about the rituals, right? I wasn't here for the question, sorry. Yeah, please, thank you.
For family members when someone passes away, but also just like the general funeral process and the process.
Yeah, okay. And so I will be talking about my culture specifically. I'm from Afghanistan, so I will be talking from that perspective, but because we are Muslims, so this is how normally other Muslims also do it, but it might be a little bit different because of the cultural issues. So in our culture in Afghanistan, when someone dies, it's as I was listening to other people here, it's usually a very sad thing, and we also don't listen to the music for a while when that happens. And the first thing we do is we start reciting the Quran, our holy book. We always have people either from our relatives or the family members. They start reciting the Quran when the person dies. This is to bless the person's spirit, and that's what we believe in. And we normally keep the deceased person for a while if they have any relatives coming from other cities or provinces to see the deceased. And if we know that there are people who are living very far, we don't usually keep the deceased person for really late. Then the ritual we have is we take the deceased person and we clean them. There is a specific process which is we call it ghusl. That's a religious way of washing the deceased person. And then after that we remove, if the person has any jewelries or stuff like that, we remove that from the body of the deceased, and then we wrap it with the white coffin, and then we keep the person inside the casket, and then we take them to the mosque. We have a prayer called janaza prayer that is for the deceased person. Again, we kind of pray for the person for his forgiveness and for his spirit to be happy in the afterlife, because in our religion we believe that once we are done with this life there is an afterlife, and the body is gone but then the spirit lives until the next life. And that's why we have the janaza prayer. Then after that we have a graveyard, and then we put the person into the grave. That's the process. Then after that we have a specific, at least in my culture, we have like on the first Friday after the person has died, we have a gathering where the relatives come, and then they read the Quran, and then they try to kind of console the person who has died and their families. And then we also, after the 40 days of the person's dead, we have another one again with the whole thing. And we also have the last one is after a year. That means that now the whole mourning for the family has ended. Normally, if the person is very young, we don't have any, especially the actual family of the deceased person, they don't have any ceremonies. For example, if there is a marriage, if there is any other ceremonies like that, they usually postpone it until a year, so that they say that it's out of respect for the person who has died. But if the person is a bit older, like 70, 80 years old, they usually wait for 6 months to have a bigger ceremony like marriage or something like that. That's, we believe that we are respecting the family and the person who has died. And during this time, what we do is we, for a long time, they usually don't have a lot of happy like the music or dancing stuff. We tend to avoid that. And what we usually do is we try to pray a lot for the person. We recite, the family recites the Quran. And the one thing that we do a lot is we normally visit the family of the deceased person a lot, every few days, just to make sure that they're doing well. And the other thing we do is that for first few weeks, we don't let the family of the deceased person to cook, because we know that they are going through a lot. So we normally, there's always someone bringing food for them to make sure that they're also getting fed and while they're going through some hard times. I think, thank you.
I wanted to back to your question. We're talking about the culture in both, in back to home in China, but people come to here. So I remember in China, when we have people die, the body will be in your house for 3 days. So the dead people is in the casket, and kind of like let people walk around to look at the body for 3 days, and the relatives will be take turn to stay with the body whole night, whole day long. And also, back to your question, I said no music. That's mean it's no fun music, and the Chinese government actually made a national funeral song music for high level people. By that time, only your like your leader, you're rich, you can use that music. But now everybody use it. So, I mean, it's for the whole nation. People use that. And also during that time, I remember you just said something about if your parents die in the old tradition, 3 years, you cannot marry. Okay. Even you planned for, maybe let's say you planned this December, I'm going to have a wedding. Okay. And something happened to your parents. So you have to cancel the wedding. And then you have to wait for 3 years to marry to this guy. But a lot of time, so many things change, during the 3 years. So that's tradition. But now, I mean, people maybe last month you die, next month you marry. It's not a tradition anymore. China developed a lot, so many old and good tradition we didn't keep. It's sad, but that's the way it is. So, I just want to add a little bit more.
So my family is Kurdish, and their culture is if somebody dies, it has to be like the same sex. If the body, so if it's like a female that dies, like no male can see the female after.
Yeah, I think for cleaning and washing the deceased person, it has to be the same sex person who is washing and cleaning them. That is it's a religious thing. So technically in our religion also we have this idea of hijab and how much of your body like the opposite sex can see. So that is the same thing when a person dies. So if a female dies, there are two or one female who will be washing and cleaning and then covering them with the coffin. And if a man dies, there will be men who will be washing and cleaning them. Yeah.
Both of your comments here and really sparks a question, Mike. How much do the rituals or ceremonies change depending upon the specific death of a parent, child, a grandparent, an in-law? So are there iterations or variations within those ceremonies? You mentioned the previous tradition, 3 years waiting inside. Do you have those sorts of variations on a particular individual?
I could share about my culture. So for us, the age of the person and also the relationship that the person has with you also determines how much you have to wait for certain things or how much you're mourning all those stuff. For example, I had one of my cousin sisters. She had a 4 or 5 year old baby boy. He died, but then after the 40 days, they moved on to get her other sister married. So because she was a young boy and then she had other children, for them, they said that, okay, it's easier for her to kind of move on. Although it was very hard for her that she was a mother, but because culturally it was appropriate to say that he was younger. And then they had a shorter period of mourning and all these rituals. But if God forbid a younger generation person, 20 years, 16 years died, then they have a longer period of mourning and rituals for that. And also our relationship with the person is also important. So for example, if it is our very close relatives like parents or brothers, daughters, sons, that is very different than if like an uncle dies or an aunt dies. So with our own very close ones, we have longer period of mournings and all these rituals. But if it's my aunt or uncle, then after a month or 40 days, I can just move on to whatever I was doing.
I'm going to answer his question real quick. So in our culture, especially in our family, I remember when my grandmother's parents passed away, at least that's what I was told, is that, and she mourned for a year. And if it's a husband, we didn't allow her to wear black, but it's black. I mean, they wear black, they mourn for a year. When my grandfather passed away and she was still alive, we didn't allow her to continue wearing black. As a matter of fact, none of her daughters would allow it, in part because, the depression was setting in. They both moved here to Lincoln, Nebraska, and it was, as it is, it was hard for them to adjust to life the way it was here. And so for us to allow her to continue that tradition in how she was mourning her husband was not going to, it was not going to help her at all. Now, I do recall that when her brothers and sisters died, she tried mourning for a year. And again, they didn't allow her because of mental health state. But, when you talk back, back in centuries and the older generation, I mean, it wasn't uncommon for people to mourn for a year. Now, if you become a widow, a lot of times the women, especially the women, were Black. Like either they remarried or forever and ever. And very traditional clothing, long skirts, long sleeve blouses. Obviously, with the years have passed, things have changed a little bit, but that was more of the tradition in Mexico.
One thing I wanted to add is that I remember one of my friends knew that I came to United States, and one day we talk through the WeChat, like Facebook. He says, "Congratulations." I say, "For what?" "Now you can, when you die, you can have your whole body buried." I says, "That's you want to congratulate to me?" He said, "Yes." But in China, nobody allowed to bear anymore. So it's the government, government policy. Everybody has to cremate. So that's why I remember he said, "Can I trade with you?" I'm afraid of to, kind of like put me, burning, So anyway, I'm just to say, so right now in China, even everything changed, this also is not a tradition. Because I remember when I was a child and, my parents, living close to the countryside. So somebody has people die, we're always so scary because they're going to do some kind of things the whole night long, make your, the black and the white always make me nervous. So, but they still keep their whole body, to bear, some people start to dig the hole, and I think the family going to order the casket because you have to kind of like a life make. It's not like by that time, it's not like you can go to store, purchase a casket. You have to kind of like make right away. 3 days, remember 3 days, the body in your house. And at the same time, you pay money, have people just make the casket. And then I remember I see is, they use the rope and, roll the both side, and then has a big, kind of like a big, kind of like the wood thing. So 8 people carry them all the way, walk to the hole, I still remember all this thing, but not anymore because right now everybody, that's why I think everybody equal at this moment. Because no matter how high your level is and how rich you are, and at this moment, we'll all be ashes.
I wanted to ask, and it segues from what you just were talking about, is the preparation of the body. So here in America, we do a lot to manipulate that body when they're not being cremated for the viewing, like makeup. And if the person was in an accident, we'll actually rebuild, we do their hair. I mean, it's professionally done. There's like a special embalming fluid that makes you look like you're younger. I was wondering if any of the cultures, like if there was a bad accident, how much preparation do they do to get that body presentable, or if any?
Yeah, back in Mexico, there isn't. I mean, that's probably the hardest part is that body, I mean, they bury it right away. But, accidents, unless it's a natural death or a death at a hospital, the families will usually not be able to see the body. But the body is prepared at home. and, you know, they wash them off and everything. There is no certain way of doing it like, you know, in the Middle Eastern culture. It's the family that'll do it. Anything to not have to pay. It's very expensive. It's usually out of people's price range. And like I said, during COVID, anybody who was passing away from COVID was immediately cremated. Whether you believed it or not, that's just the way the government had it. But other than that, it's up to the family to prepare the body. The people in the mortuary will help and set the body into the casket, but the casket is sealed and they do not get involved unless you pay for it. And even then, it's expensive. And so there's no such thing as going to the mortuary and having a hearse, and that's it. Now, it is a little more common on the border towns because they're right across from the states, right? But once you get further into Mexico, especially indigenous people, they have their own traditions on how they do things. And so, yeah. You want to add to that?
No, yeah, and so it's kind of similar like that. We don't do nothing much after that. So as a family, we just clean up and then have a flower around them, and we have they call a water squash. We because we don't have medicine that gonna keep the dead people longer. So that's why we have a usually tradition stuff like that that fruit, that veggie is I don't know here. I would say like a water squash they call, but it might be different name too. That we put that it's made the body not to smell, so they can keep like at least 3 days for the relative and the family will come, like to come can come that the family that live far away, and yeah, that's it. That I will do. Okay.
In our culture, we don't have the. I think in your culture you have this. There is a part where people who come for the ceremony they actually go and see the deceased person. I think I haven't been to and one here, but I have seen it in movies. I think there's a line and then they go and see the deceased person. We don't have that in our culture, so the person who has died, only the close relatives see the person for the last time, and if anyone requests to see the person for the last time, that is the only time they see it. And then if there is an accident or something, it's the whole body is covered in that white coffin. There is no dresses for the deceased person. We only have that white coffin that the deceased person is wrapped in, and we don't use any makeup or anything. They have this belief that when someone has died, they have to go in their most purest and natural way that they have come to this world. Like when the baby is born, they have nothing on and they're very clean and pure. And when they're dying, the belief is that they're taking nothing but how they come to this world, like without any clothes, without any makeup. So that's why we don't use any of that.
Forget the macabre nature of the question, but are there any variations? There is no one. There has been a deceased, but nobody was able to cover hiking accident, clothing accident. The ceremonies altered much more.
So yeah, I can talk about it because I was as a refugee, and then we be through a lot of war zone, and then before we moved to the refugee in Thailand and in Burma. So people die, and then sometimes we don't like we couldn't even have the body or had couldn't find the body, and then don't even don't know what to do. But we still do a ceremony for them. We have their family there, and then the family gonna talk about the loved one like their life story a little bit. And we just do worship. We ask the pastor to come in and praying. And yeah, and then after that, we don't have any ceremony, like anything barrier, but we still do a ceremony for them.
I want to answer your question also. If somebody kind of like missed, we never found this person, or any kind of accident, the body is kind of like in pieces. Or so in China, I remember even right now we don't bury the bodies anymore, but we're still doing something. So they use paper to make a person to burn, to pretend that person. So they're still doing that. And a lot of stores, in China, they even make a business. So if it's the real body is there, they burn with that, the paper person burn with the real person, or not at all. But I remember some of the Chinese place, they have some, the picture. And I want to add that one, the picture with your ceremony for your funeral. The picture always like 16 by 11. It's huge. Not allowed to use any kind of frame, only black. And till to now, the older generation, before they die, they might just talk to their kids, their grandkids. Hey, I recently take the picture, white or black. Okay, you have to go to the Photoshop and just take a picture for your funeral. It's white or black. So the kids prove, hey, mama, this is good. So, okay, you guys proved it. This is my picture for my funeral. So we're still continue this tradition. So for the people, nobody, maybe that picture going to burn with the paper, person. Yeah, that's what we do right now. There's no police help you at all to find the body. Not like United States, a lot of people go search for, nobody, government, too many people in China. Nobody help you. So we don't wait. We don't wait. That's why we have some story. The funeral already done. 3 months later, these people showed it. Like, whoa, so it's not that have time to wait. So the family know there's no way to find the body, and they're pretty sure that the person died. They're going to have the funeral. And then, I heard some stories that people show up years later or a few months later, but that's a different story. But that's a happy story, right?
One of the issues that happens between here and Mexico, of course, is a lot of people trying to cross. A lot of people die in the desert, or they get kidnapped, abducted, whatever. And so what happens in Mexico, they just have sort of a ceremony or service, not a ceremony, but a service with a picture, as Rebecca was saying. But that happens a lot more than we think of. A lot of people are missing that are coming over. Either they're killed or they just, die on the way over here. So that is a real concern. And so more recently, they just have a service with a picture, and sometimes the picture is then turned over to the family, and that's basically the service.
So it's the opposite of that. What happens when the government or somebody finds a body that no one claims? Or do you know?
I don't know for a fact, but I know it depends on what government finds it. In Mexico, it probably would just be somebody would just, get rid of the body, I guess. But in United States, I would imagine they would try to find some kind of relationship or akin to that person. But I really don't know for a fact, but I'm just assuming that's what would happen.
So, I'm not so sure about here, if the government find it and then they will do something, but over there, I don't even like hope that the government gonna find, and then they don't even gonna care, and so the family not gonna know anything about it, or nobody not gonna say about it. It's gonna be, so just like that, yeah.
You know, here's a perfect example of that. The women that were disappearing in Juarez, Mexico, they were thrown in places that were not usually traveled. They find bones. I mean, I guess every situation is different, but in that case, you know, that's when the pink crosses started popping up, which really demonstrated to people how many women were disappearing. And they would find a shoe, a bone, something that belonged to that family member. It is hard. I mean, you know, and I know this just because I did a paper on it, and because I still have family there, and people disappearing has gotten to be very common. But as far as religious goes, you know, it's like Romeo said, you know, there is a service. If a body here in the States is for some reason disappears or something, you know, you do have a service depending on the religious beliefs. You know, it's a morning, you have your novena, you know, 9 days of prayer for them. And I think it's very, very common in all of our cultures. It's how we do it that's a little different, but we don't stray very far from what we all do when it comes to mourning and traditional time that we mourn and our beliefs are.
I can share some information about my culture in this regard. So in our culture, unless you know that the person is dead for sure, you don't have the whole services and ceremonies and stuff for them. So if there is a terrible accident or examples that you say that you know that people have died but you cannot recover the body, that is when they have all the services. They still pray they still have the prayer for the person, they still have all the mourning, but unless if the person is missing, it's a cultural thing. They want to keep hoping that the person will appear at some point, so they don't have any service for the person if it is missing, unless you are absolutely sure that yes, it is the person is dead but you cannot recover the body. That is something else, but we don't have any service or mourning for people who are missing. And also if there is a body of someone who is found and you don't know who the person, like the relatives or anyone, and you cannot keep this forever, they always try to find like a relative or someone. If not, always like the region that the body is found, in Afghanistan we have mosque almost in every corner. So in the mosque area where the person is found, people they gather and then they have their janaza prayer or the prayer for the dead person, and they go and bury them and have they pray Quran for them, and they just believe that whoever the person is, we are just praying for this her or his soul to rest in peace. That's what we do.
Another thing I wanted to add is that I think Chinese traditional culture, we actually have very good traditions. So if you know your close family die, and New Year, Harvest Moon, and this person's birthday, and we always have a family, kind of like a reunion, and we were put like a chopsticks and a bowl and dish, still make a seat for that person, and then everybody say, "You go first." You know, you go first. Then everybody start to eat. It's kind of like a memory. It's kind of like a try to celebrate. I think this is a really good tradition and, I don't know about American culture, but, this person died will be always remember, in this family. And even you go to kind of like a Memorial Day, we go to because China is very limited place. So everybody, kind of like a grave is very tight. So you see a lot of food there because they will make fresh the that person's favorite dish or fruit or some kind of food will bring to Memorial Day, give to that person. So, and I think the place will be take off that night, but during the day you see a lot of food in Memorial Day. So I think this is a really good tradition. You're always in your family's memory. So yeah.
We're getting really close to the end, but I have one more question. If you guys can answer, what is like, is there a specific holiday for memorializing death, and not just for one person, but like the culture just has a certain date, like Dia de los Muertos, for example? And what day is that day?
It's like we depend on our the lunar calendar. So each year is different, but I remember it's kind of like a late March and early April. And we call the Qingming. Qingming spells Qing Ming, Qingming Festival. That day for the whole country to kind of like remember your family members, or the soldiers, people die for the country. We use that day.
So for us, we don't really have a special day for the whole, for the whole community, but we have for Matri Days, we call. It's a Heroes Memorial Day for people that are the leaders or the people that fights for their country. We have it's on August 12th.
For my country, we don't have a specific day to remember like all the people who are died, but religiously and culturally for us, it's like we have some holidays. For example, for us, every day of Friday is a holiday where we have our Friday prayer, and also during the month of Ramadan, there are a few days like we call it as our religious holidays, and we believe that if we pray for the soul of the person who has died, it will be very good for them. So like for our every Friday prayers that we go, or during the month of Ramadan, or every time that we are praying or we are reciting the Quran, we tend to pray for the soul of the person who has died, so that he is forgiven, he or she is resting in peace, all the stuff. Yeah.
As far as El Dia de los Muertos, I can give you a little bit more. It's November 1st. And as I mentioned earlier, it's more of a celebration of life than of death. It's that you're moving on to another life, and everything has a symbolic significance. For example, the marigolds signify that that's the flowers that it's a path to paradise or heaven. And we have el pan de muerto, which is a bread specially made for the dead. And sometimes there's even a big loaf of bread, and they put a little cross or something in there. And, when you eat it, you find that cross and you think of your loved one and so forth. And it's a very big celebration. If you go into Mexico and you go to the cemeteries are completely full with flowers, with music, with food. It's a very a joyous occasion. And even though you're remembering all your ancestors And it's not just immediate family that just died, you know, a year or two. It's ancestors. You can go all the way back, which is, again, part of what I said earlier. It's a remembrance. And as long as you remember your family members or other people that have passed away, they will continue to be in paradise. So.
That's our time. Thank you so much, guys. And you can. Yeah, sure.